Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Corps studio once again for spoiler season. Welcome to the show. So Outlaws of Thunder Junction keeps on rolling like a train in Thunder Junction, I guess. They've got trains, right? Anyways, with all that said, let's jump into the exciting cards that we saw overnight and early this morning. Let's do it. So, first up, yeah, this is going to be an annoying card for a couple of reasons. Even Interrupter, because when someone's like, I cast this, you're like, what? Wait, what? And you're going to interrupt that person. It's going to be very obnoxious, obviously. It's also kind of an obnoxious card, a 2/2 bird rogue, so keep in mind it is an outlaw with flash and flying that costs 3 mana and white. When it enters the battlefield, exile target spell, it becomes plotted. Spells your opponents cast from graveyards or exile cost 2 more to cast. Notably, for one thing to note, again, when something is plotted, I believe you can only cast it at sorcery speed, so essentially, counter spells are just countered by this permanently, because you can't counter something with a counter spell that's at sorcery speed. So, yeah, that's quite interesting, quite nice. Yeah, so mono white has a counter spell. It's also a nice, like, delaying effect on spells that you might not want your opponent to be able to cast, because again, they have to wait. You know, can't be. I don't think they can. You can't recast a spell that's been plotted on the same turn. You can't cast a spell that's been plotted on the same turn, which is nice. Also, it makes certain decks out there very upset. You know, again, because spells your opponents cast from graveyards or exile. So Prosper decks out there, which is one of the most popular commanders of all time. This is enemy number 1 because you're gonna be like, yeah. I don't want to have to pay 2 extra for all of my spells I'm casting from exile or elsewhere. So obviously this can really slow down like flashback also, you know, cards out of graveyards being recast, flashback, jumpstart, those kinds of cards. And of course, yeah, any of those impulse draw type effects as well. This is just a pretty obnoxious card. It's definitely not for every kind of strategy out there. I mean, it is definitely a shoe-in for a Hate Bears deck though. I mean, being basically a counter spell, being a counter delay spell, and then also just being a shutdown feature against certain kind of decks that really count on casting cards from outside of the hand, essentially graveyards and exile. So yeah, notably it does not say like this would be much more heavily played, or kind of less maybe even so in some ways, because it's very mean in Commander if it was like outside the hand, because that would count the command zone, which is probably why they didn't specify that. Regardless, yeah, a very good card. Next up, Bovine Intervention. Hilarious. If you missed yesterday, it talked about Holy Cow, a hilarious card, and they're going further on with the cow-based names. Bovine Intervention, like Divine Intervention. Nice. Instant for 1 and a white, destroy target artifact or creature. Its controller creates a 2/2 white ox creature token. I mean, that's a pretty good cost for a pretty good effect. Be able to get rid of one of 2 things. Artifacts or creatures are pretty, heavily used in Commander, and giving them a 2/2 is not a big deal. So it's kind of like a smaller version of, well, Beast Within in green, Generous Gift in white. There we go. We got there. But still, I mean, this is a bit more specific. Yeah, I mean, it's a decent removal spell. Definitely. Next up, Arid Archway. So you might not have expected this, but we got yet another bounce land with this set, and this one is a desert. Enters battlefield tapped. When enters the battlefield, return a land you control to its owner's hand. If another desert is returned this way, surveil 1. Tap for colorless colors. Basically, Guildless Commons, like the exact same as Guildless Commons, but also it is a desert, and if you bounce a desert, you surveil 1. So yeah, keep that in mind. Some nice additional card selection there. I will just mention, I guess, for like your Tatiova decks out there, I believe this would just, return a land. Doesn't specify what kind of land. So yeah, you can actually just go infinite with this with your Tatiova bounce land combos. So have fun with that. I mean, I guess not technically infinite because you're going to run out of cards to draw, but yeah, you know what I mean. Next up, Congregation Griff. A 1/4 Hippogriff mount, because that's a thing, with flying lifelink that costs 3 mana in Selesnya. When it attacks while saddled, it gets +X so after X number of mounts you control. Saddle 3. Now, let me know in the comments below if this is the case or not. I know in the past it's like, this is very specific, okay? This is going to be a very specific discussion. Wizards is kind of weird with like certain creature types like not being creature types that changelings are, because like, is mount a creature type or just like a creature type descriptor? I can't remember exactly what they call it, but it's like, there's like certain things that changelings are not, and I would assume Mount might be one of them. Like if you've got, again, whatever that changeling is that can turn all your creatures into changelings, mirror image, not mirror image, mirror something, mirror entity, there we go. If you have that in play, you turn all your creatures into mounts. Does that work? Can you turn your creatures, is mount a creature type specifically, or is it just like a creature type descriptor kind of thing? I believe it's the latter, and it wouldn't actually apply. That's incredibly specific. But yeah, if you were going for a saddle mount tribal deck, here you go. If you're not, meh. Next up, Crafty Coyote, hilarious. Wily Coyote, genius. Yeah, anyone, Roadrunner Coyote? No? Okay. Anyways, a 2/2 Coyote with haste that costs 1 and a red. When it enters the battlefield on a target creature you control, it gets +1/+1 and gains haste all turn. You can plot this as well. I mean, it's a very limited kind of card, essentially. Not really for many decks out there, I wouldn't think, in Commander. I really was hoping when they did kind of spoil that there was going to be a Coyote and a Roadrunner, which was pointed out in the comments below. That's like, yeah, Roadrunner and Coyote from, the cartoons, that they would have been legendary and would have been like on opposite sides of the law. But that's not the case. So we have a uncommon card. I just want to mention also, thank you, MTG Goldfish, for any translated version of these cards. Next up, Eartha Joe Frontier Mentor, a 2/4 core advisor that's an uncommon, but nowhere near uncommon in its effect, for 2 red and white. Enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 red mercenary creature token with tap to a creature you control, gives +1/+0 till turn, active on sorcery. Whenever you activate an ability that targets a creature or player, copy that ability when she targets the copy. Eddie and I actually had like our wish list from last year. We talked about like 2024 wish list. What do we want? One thing that we wanted was them to stop just doing copy-paste commanders, which are like, hey, this doubles. Yeah. 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 No. Please stop that, Wizards. I mean, okay, at least you didn't do like an overpowered one, but this can still do some very powerful things. And I guess I say overpowered, but like overpowered within its own color pie. There's still some really cool things that you can do with it, obviously. And it does, activate, or whenever you activate an ability, it targets a creature or player, so either one of those, so you can definitely double up on some crazy things. I mean, like, Voltaic Construct, I'm sure, can combo with certain things, obviously. If you have some creatures that can untap that are artifact creatures that produce mana, it can already combo with other things too, though. But yeah, I mean, this, outside of its color identity, if this was in blue, it'd be like, oh yeah, easy combos, like any kind of, what's the one that costs 2, and it can tap to untap itself or another target creature? Whatever, a Phaedo Alchemist. Anything that could basically tap to untap another target creature, if you had 2 of them in play, you could just do that infinitely. Or again, one like a Phaedo Alchemist that can just untap itself. Yeah, luckily this is not in blue, or that would just be all the decks ever do around them. But, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. But again, just Wizards, it just seems a bit lazy when it comes to design, where you're just like, players like these doubling effects. We're learning that they like these, and they end up buying a lot of them. Like Ishin, it doubles up attack triggers. Cool. Let's find more doubling things to double and double and double. It's like, it's just kind of lazy design, in my opinion. Anyways, next up, High Noon. Enchantment for 1 and a white. Each player can't cast more than 1 spell each turn. Okay, so first of all, before we do the next part, this is literally just improved, better version of Rule of Law, or what's Arcane Observatory? Is that the one that's in blue? I can never remember that one. Anyways, basically just saying like, hey, we can only cast 1 spell each turn each. Yay! And your opponents or spell swingers like, I hate you. I hate you. Okay, anyways, pay 4 and a red. Sacrifice deals 5 damage to any target. I mean, you're probably going to keep this in play for as long as you will. I mean, until like an opponent is down to like 5 life. Essentially, it's probably what you're going to be doing, right? You're just going to be keeping this in play, and then you're going to be stifling your opponents, making them regret that they played this game with you because you only making players cast 1 spell each turn. You've obviously built your deck in a way where you just don't care about that. Essentially, you're like, yeah, whatever. I mean, I'm casting big things or whatever, or I've got, ways around it in some kind of a way where I can like cheat things out of my graveyard. Yeah, you got ways around it potentially, but your opponents aren't so lucky. And then at the end of the game, when that player, the last player who's left, is like, oh, it's been a 3-hour game because we're only casting 1 spell each turn. Oh, no, I'm at 5 life. They're like, oh, you're at 5 life? Cool, I'll sacrifice this, ping you for 5. And they're like, no, oh, thank goodness, the game's over. Yeah, that's probably how it's going to go. But yeah, basically seeing just like an improved Rule of Law is pretty crazy. Notably, in Commander, obviously, this is more restrictive than Rule of Law, because Rule of Law, I believe, is just 2 and a white. Doesn't have an activated ability that has a red in it. So this is essentially, again, more limited what decks it can be in. So keep that in mind. Next up, Intimidation Campaign. That is a interesting picture. like a zombie ghost thingy that's electrified. Anyways, enchantment for 3 mana in Dimir. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life and you draw a card. Interesting. Whenever you commit a crime, you may return Intimidation Campaign to its owner's hand. I mean, I guess if you've got like an Enchantress deck that happens to have Dimir in it, which rarely any do, go for it. Because you can just recast it, and obviously your Enchantress effects will trigger again and again and again. And you have to be committing crimes in that deck, but I guess you got like auras that you can target opponents' things with, and that would count. That being said, this seems more like a limited card. Next up, Marauding Sphinx. Please don't be a good Sphinx for Eddie's Sphinx deck, which is already crazy powerful. And if you're at an LGS or at like, Magicon, you play against Eddie, make sure you take Eddie out first with that Sphinx deck. Thank you, everyone. Okay, anyways, a 3/5 Sphinx Rogue for 5 mana in blue, flying, Vigilance, and Ward 2, because Wizards throws Ward on everything. Whenever you commit a crime, Surveil 2. This ability triggers only once each turn. Yeah. Okay, I guess Surveilling 2 is nice card selection. Triggering once each turn is limited. I don't think this one needed to be limited, but, I've been proven wrong in the past by others who are like, wait, you could do that with it. You could do that with it. I'm like, fine, but I'm a Johnny, and I like when you can break things. Once each turn is not breaking. Anyways, next up. Marchesa is back. Dealer of Death. 3/4 Human Rogue for 3 mana in Grixis. I almost said Marty right there. Whenever you commit a crime, you may pay 1. If you do, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put one of them in your hand, the other in your graveyard. This does not say triggers only once each turn. Look at that, Wizards. Cool. Yeah, probably because you have to pay an amount, I assume. Like you have to pay 1. But I'm sure there's still some pretty broken, amazing things you can do this. And that's because, well, it's a commander, and they want to be able to build around it, most likely. And with that, I mean, I guess, like, there's another one that, whatever, Gisa has, committing a crime thing, too. There's probably other commanders already so far. But anyways, it's a commander they definitely want people to be able to build around and not limiting it. If it was limited to once each turn, this would be pretty terrible. Not terrible, just not great. But yes, being able to repeatedly commit crimes with things like, even if you just have a bunch of like Tims in play that can like tap and ping someone for 1, or like activate abilities that like might cost like 1 or 2 that can target someone or something that an opponent controls. Great. Being able to repeat that, be able to just pay 1. Again, look at the top 2. 1 goes in your hand, other in your graveyard. That can have some great synergy. Again, like card advantage right there with card selection built in. And also filling up your graveyard can be great too for certain decks out there. I mean, yeah, that's quite nice. And also, again, it can kind of pair with that, too. I'm sure there's some kind of a combo that I'm missing here right now where it's like, hey, when a card hits your graveyard, this. I mean, there's certain ones like when a card hits your graveyard, like ping everyone. That's not targeted, so that's not committing a crime. But there's probably ones that are like when something hits your graveyard, make a creature or like, this or that. And then maybe that can pair with something else that then would trigger to target an opponent, essentially. There's got to be something here. Something probably pretty obvious that I'm missing here. But, oh yeah, there's definitely things that are like when artifact hits a graveyard from anywhere, I believe, is a thing. And then that targets whatever that one is that costs 1 mana. I think it's a creature, right, in black. I'm spitballing right here, but I believe that's something where it's like, then it could target. So essentially, if you had those kind of synergies built in, then you could just pay 1 again, 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 again. I'm sure there's combos I'm missing right now. Again, I'm just seeing this card right now, essentially. But yeah. I think that this one, again, I'm glad they didn't limit it because it gives it more potential. I don't think it's that broken at all, and I think it's one that could be pretty interesting with how you build around it. Again, choosing to target, opponents, anything they control or cards in their graveyards, and then really working into those synergies of getting cards on the top of your library, getting things into your graveyard, and how you can just keep committing crimes again, again, and again. I think it's got a lot of fun potential for it. Next up, Rotting Robber. A 4/3 zombie rogue for 4 mana in black. Enters the battlefield. If a creature died this turn, you get a 2/2 zombie. Plot. Cool. Seems like a limited card. Next up, Servant of the Stinger. That's interesting. Warlock with a crab hand. 1/3 human warlock for 1 in a black with death touch. When it deals, it's not a crab, it's a scorpion hand. Okay, there we go. Anyways, whatever. Deals combat damage to a player. If you've committed a crime this turn, you may sacrifice Servant of the Stinger. If you do, search life for a card with the card in your hand, then shuffle. Interesting. Okay. I mean, yeah, kind of like a repeatable tutor if you can get through with this. It does have death touch, so I mean, obviously that makes it so it's less likely to be blocked by your opponents. But if your opponents like know that you're probably going to be doing this, they're probably going to block it and take it out and sacrifice one of their creatures basically to do so. Interesting. It's a very interesting way to tutor. Very specific decks out there might want to consider this one, like a death touch deck. But other than that, yeah, it's not really a tutor that you can really count on all that much because you do have to make sure that you are committing a crime essentially, to do that and getting this through. Next up, Spinewoods Armadillo, a 7/7 Armadillo, Holiday Armadillo. Friends, anyone? No? Okay. Reach Ward 3, because Wizards throws Ward everything. That costs 6 mana in green. Pay 1 in a green, discard it. Search life for a base lane card or a desert card reveal up in your hand. Not Battlefield, obviously. Then shuffle, you gain 3 life. Yeah, if that was Battlefield, that'd be like they just made a better rampant growth for no reason. No. Yeah, this is going to see play. I guess like in really heavy creature-based strategies that want like some flexibility in order to get a land out of your deck just so you're not like missing land drops, I guess. But like other than that, meh. Yeah, more limited. Next up, Step Between Worlds. Sorcery for 5 mana in blue. Each player may shuffle their hand and graveyard in their library. Each player who does draw 7 cards, exile Step Between Worlds. I mean, I don't know how I feel about Wizards just being like, hey, everyone, let's make friendlier wheels so we don't have to force you to lose your hand. I mean, it's an interesting effect. Also, plot, that's the interesting part of this card. So when it comes to like just like considering this for yourself, I mean, that is pretty on curve for like what in effect to Time Twister is outside of Time Twister, which out of the Power 9's only non-banned card. But it's incredibly expensive, and you probably don't have thousands of dollars just around just to utilize it. But yes, I mean, or if you do, good for you. But yeah, 5 mana is probably on par with what you usually have to pay to actually do this. Again, the plot is very interesting though, because like you are paying more to plot it, but then on a future turn, you can do it whenever you need to, which I think is great, because there are definitely times when you have the mana, and you've got a couple things to do, but you don't want to get rid of things yet, and being able to utilize this on a future turn for free, essentially, is pretty awesome. Again, I don't know why they put the May in there. Someone in the comments below, just let me know why they put the May in there, I guess. I don't see, like, the need to, like, make wheels less wheelie. I mean, wheels are inherently, like, a strategy that is going to upset some people. And so maybe they're like, from now on, wheels are optional for your opponents. Yeah, wheels just do what they do, okay? Next up, Tomb Trawler. Artifact creature golem, 0/4 for 2 mana. Pay 2, put target card from your graveyard on the bottom of your library. Grenzo decks, Grenzo Dungeon Warden decks out there. Rejoice! You got another great card for that kind of a deck. Being able to get cards out of your graveyard, putting it right on the bottom of your library. That's nice. If you don't have a deck that interacts with the bottom of your library, I think there's that one Is It Mage that like plays things off the bottom of your library too. Or draws off the bottom of your library maybe. If you don't have bottom of the graveyard interaction, probably not a card for your deck. Anyways, next up. Unscrupulous Contractor, a 3/2 human assassin for 3 mana in black. Enters the battlefield. You may sacrifice a creature. When you do, target player draws 2 cards, loses 2 life. You can also plot this if you really want to. Kind of like a Sign in Blood, but like potentially a Sign in Blood if you sacrifice. I mean, you could sacrifice this creature, right? You could also sacrifice a different creature if you really wanted to. Yeah, maybe Aristocrat style decks maybe want this. Probably not compared to all the other things that they have. It's interesting. Again, the plot factor is really interesting, and we'll see how that really plays out in a format like Commander, where like, yeah, being flexible with your mana is a very nice thing. Yeah, it's interesting. It's very interesting. Let's just say that. Next up, Head Knife Point. This one is just more so confirming. I believe I already went through this in a leaks episode, and essentially, not that I'm saying that none of the cards in any of the leaks are that could be fake, but at this point, like, we've seen so many of the cards that are real. It's like, yeah, all the cards in the leaks are probably real at this point because they've basically been confirmed through other ones. But yeah, interesting. Enchantment for 3 mana in Rakdos really quick, just in case you haven't seen it. As long as you turn Outlaws, you control first strike. So again, it's Assassins, Mercenaries, Pirates, Rogues, and Warlocks. Whenever you commit a crime, create a 1/1 Mercenary. That does what Mercenaries do. Spell triggers only once each turn. Come on, triggers only once each turn, Wizards. Come on, let us do some broken things. Okay, that's just me. All right, anyways. Yeah, I mean, if you have an Outlaws deck, go for it. If not, probably not for you. Unless you're like really big about committing crimes in other decks that like can do it on your opponent's turns too. Next up, Archangel of Tithes. Just want to point this one out. This is in the main set, I believe, but it is a reprint. So we already know what this card does. Really quick, 3/5 flyer. As long as it's untapped, creatures can't attack your planeswalkers you control unless their controller pays 1 for each of those creatures. As long as it's attacking, creatures can't block unless they pay 1 for each of those creatures. Basically, helpful on offense, helpful on defense, depending on what you want to do with it. Very good card. Decently expensive, if I remember correctly. At least outside of my budget, I should say. But we'll see what happens with this. And then finally, this is the one I'm going to talk about when it comes to price your picks and budget buys after this, so stay tuned. Roxan Starfall Savant. If you had on your bingo card Cat Meteor thing, You got it. Cat who's obsessed with meteors, I guess. A 4/3 cat druid for 5 mana in Gruul. Enters the battlefield or attacks, create a tapped colorless artifact token named Meteorite. When Meteorite enters the battlefield, you'll choose any target and tap at 1 mana of any color. Whenever you tap an artifact token specifically, for a mana, add 1 mana of any type that artifact token produced. Okay, so first of all, I believe Meteorite is an actual card. Ironically, I believe also costs 5, right? I think. And it kind of has the exact same thing. I think when it enters the battlefield, it does 1 damage to any target, 2 damage to any target. And it also can tap for 1 mana of any color, so it's a very inefficient mana rock that has like some damage, like a shock, but a very expensive shock that also taps for mana. That being said, this happens on ETB or on attack. This is quite good, being able to build up essentially more and more mana rocks for yourself that also, well, don't need to tap for 1, because again, when this is in play, they are artifact tokens, so they tap for 2, which is pretty great. And also that 2 damage is nice. And yeah, just being able to build up a glut of mana rocks throughout the game, again, on ETB or attack. With these colors, it's more easy to abuse, I would say, probably the attack side of that. That being said, there are certain ways you can abuse the, ETB side is what we'll talk about some here in a little bit. But yeah, there's a lot of potential for that. I'll also say, Wizards, Treasures, stop giving Treasures support. Please. Okay. At least the Meteorite's coming to play tap. I feel like Wizards is finally starting to realize, like, oh, giving players free extra resources just on that turn when they make the thing, probably overpowered, which is what most treasures are when they're coming to play, untap and be able to use them. I understand players out there like treasures, but like we're getting way too much stuff for it. That being said, outside treasures, there's a lot of interesting things that you can do with this one, and yeah, we're gonna be talking about those right now. So if you are interested in this commander, maybe check out some of these budget buys. Cards that are less than $1, they're within my budget, consider them. There is a card list link to all these cards in the description below, before I forget to say that. Voyager Staff. Again, like I mentioned, there's not really too many ways to use and abuse the ETB portion of that. There are some, we'll go through them, but not nearly as much as if, say, this was in blue or white, which has an absurd amount of blink effects in them. Or even black, which has like feigned death type effects that can bring them back from death. Anyways, Voyager Staff, pay 2, sacrifice it, blink a creature essentially. It's like a delayed blink, comes back at the end step. So that is a way to essentially, again, you get that mana back because you are, again, paying 2 to do that. It ETBs, it makes a Meteorite that deals 2 damage, comes up play tap, but then it's going to be able to tap for 2 as long as your commander is in play, so keep that in mind. So again, any kind of blink effects that you can get your hands on are obviously going to be pretty good with this kind of a commander that basically just produces mana rocks that essentially tap for 2 and deal damage too. Replicating Ring. Also, there are certain mana rocks out there that can actually make token mana rocks too, and Replicating Ring can be a very good one. That being said, it does take time to get there, but when it does, my goodness, so this commander could be spicy. Snow Artifact for 3, tap for 1 mana of any color. Not very efficient there, but just wait. Beginning of your upkeep, put a night counter on it, then for 8 or more night counters on it, remove all of them, and create 8 colorless Snow Artifact tokens named Replicating Ring with tap at 1 mana of any color. So these essentially, again, would all tap for 2, all the token copies of it. So you'd get what? Again, it's 8 you're getting, so it's 16 mana from those, plus the 1. So 17 mana in total. Again, you do have to get to those 8 counters and at your upkeep and to be able to do that. I mean, you do have proliferate effects potentially that you could take advantage of, that if those kind of work with other parts of the deck too, then yeah, go for it. Other than that, you're just really hoping to get this down early and hoping the game lasts long enough and no one removes it, and then you just have 17 mana out of a 3 mana investment, which is pretty crazy and pretty fun. So I mean, even just for like the chance that could happen, it might be worth just keeping in the deck for like that crazy situation where you're like, oh, huh, I mean, 8 turns ago I just put this down and now all of a sudden I get 17 mana, you're all gone. Yeah. Skyclave Relic, a bit easier to ensure that you actually get to some value out of this. An artifact for 3 with kicker 3, it's indestructible, taps for 1 mana of any color. Most importantly though, enters the battlefield. If it was kicked, create 2 tap tokens or copies of it. So again, because they are artifact tokens, those are going to tap for 2. So essentially, yeah, you can play this for 3 and tap for 1 with an indestructible, mana rock. Or if you kick it for an extra 3, you're essentially getting 5 mana out of this instead. And that is well above the curve of what you can usually get. So again, paying 6 mana, getting 5 permanent mana, that can really skyrocket you ahead of your opponents. And again, those are indestructible artifacts too, so they can stick around and be a bit more sturdy. Next up, Svella Ice Shaper. I love this creature. 2/4 Troll Warrior for 3 mana in Gruul. Pay 3 tap. make a colorless snow artifact token named Icy Manolith with tap add 1 mana of any color. Again, because it is an artifact token that you are making, it is more valuable to this commander. It is permanent ramp for you as long as it's staying in play, obviously, and it's going to be tapping for 2 instead of 1. So again, it costs 3 for you to activate this ability, but you're getting 2 of that mana back, again, right away, essentially, as long as your commander is in play. Also, you can pay 8, essentially, and tap look top 4 cards of your library, cast a spell from on them for free, for the rest of my ability random order. That can be a lot of fun as well. And again, when you're making these mana rocks, when you're making all this mana, you're going to have a glut of resources. You might as well use that mana in a fun way. Next up, Jaxus the Troublemaker. And trouble you shall make with this. Pay a single red, tap, discard a card, create tokens, copy of a target creature you control. It gains haste, and when this creature dies, draw a card. Sacrifice, begin next end step, activate only as a sorcery. This is one where you, I'm not going to say take advantage of your commander being legendary, but like, you don't really care that your commander is legendary if you are making token copies of it with a commander like this that has an ETB like this. Because, yeah, you're making a token copy. Oh no, the legend rule, it gets taken out. Cool, who cares? Because essentially with this, again, you are basically rummaging again, discarding a card, then you're going to be drawing a card when that creature copy dies. And also, you get that ETB from your commander, so again, you get to make another meteorite, whatever it's called. So you're basically getting even more mana back than you put into this, essentially. I mean, eventually, it comes into play tap, but still. So this is kind of like, pay a red mana, rummage, I was going to say lightning bolt, shock something, and also ramp 2. Yeah, that can be quite good. So yes, again, there are only so many ways to really take advantage of the ETB. There's some more we'll talk about here in a bit, but yeah, make sure you're considering these. Next up, Last Night Together. When it comes to additional combat effects, Ishin, thanks for making them all incredibly expensive, you meanie. Regardless, there's a couple that are still very budget-friendly. Last Night Together, sorcery for 5 mana in Gruul. Choose 2 target creatures, untap them, put 2 counters on each of them. They gain vigilance, indestructible, haste, of turn at this main phase for combat phase. Only chosen creatures can attack during that combat phase. You can get your commander's attack trigger again with any kind of additional combat triggers, abilities, spells, whatever they are. You can ensure that you are getting that attack trigger again to get more meteorites into play. And again, every single time you do that, that's extra damage and extra ramp as well. And then next up, Seventh Great Worm. This one's a bit more specific, but hear me out. Whenever a land enters battlefield under control, create tap Power Stone token. I'm going to make sure I said this right. Land enters the battlefield. Did I say under your control? I meant just if I did. Land enters the battlefield permanently. Anyone's lands come into play, and yeah, it's going to happen a lot in a game of Commander. Did you know players like land ramp in Commander? Even if they're just playing their 1 land for the turn, that's still 4 Power Stone tokens with each tripper on the table. And each of those Power Stone tokens, instead of tapping for a single colorless, will tap for 2. That being said, this mana can't be spent to cast a non-artifact spell. So again, if you don't have like any artifacts in the deck, or if you don't have any activated abilities that you want to utilize that mana for, or any other ways to utilize that mana, then yeah, that's not a great idea. But yes, if you have things that you can utilize that mana for, this is going to produce you an absurd amount of mana for you. Speaking of which, Brass's Bounty. Okay, yeah, basically, again, kind of bearing the lead with this one. Yes, this can definitely just be a throw all the treasure cards in the deck commander. Wizards tends to like making those commanders because players tend to like treasures. I think it's like the 2nd or 3rd most popular theme these days on according to HREC. Regardless, Brass's Bounty, sorcery for 7 mana for each land you control, create treasure token. Yeah, I mean, even if you're just say casting this and you have 7 lands in play, cool, you just went up 7 mana. Oh wait, with this commander, 14 mana. So basically a giant ritual effect that can just give you an absurd amount of mana to put you way ahead of your opponents, whether you want to use the mana right away, because again, these don't come into play tapped, or if you want to use it on a future turn. I mean, you just wait till next turn, you play another land, you're at 8 lands, let's say, you tap and sacrifice all your treasures, that's what? Oh goodness, what did I say? 14 plus 8, 22. You can probably win with that. So congratulations on that. But now to move on to price your picks. Again, cards outside of my budget, but might be within yours. And again, all these cards are in that card list. Link in the description below. First up, Tireless Provisioner, a 3/2 Elf Scout for 3 mana. Landfall, whenever a land is battlefield under control, create a food token or a treasure token. So, yeah, you're in green. You got ways to land ramp. Congratulations. And when you do so, you get treasures. But wait, instead of just giving you 1 mana for each land that you have come into play, you get 2. Because again, your commander doubles that up. Gross. I mean, just think about like Evolving Wilds. Play it, tap, sacrifice it, landfall, 2 triggers, getting 2 treasures. That's 4 extra mana. Lovely. Jolene, the Plunder Queen, of course, can be great with this commander as well. Essentially, anything that's like, hey, treasure support, throw it in a treasure deck. It's going to work out. 2/2 Human Warrior for 4 mana in Gruul. Whenever a player attacks with one or more of your opponents, that attacking player gets a treasure token. Good for them. If you create one of our treasure tokens, instead create basically 2. So congratulations, get an additional one. Sacrifice 5 treasures, get 5 counters on this. Probably not going to do that too much, but yeah, being able to double up your treasure token production is obviously a very good thing. Molten Echoes. This might be very specific, but who cares? I mean, essentially, when it comes to using and abusing this effect, this ETB, there are certain ways to do it in these colors, mostly in red, and if you can really lean into that, you can get a lot of value out of it. Enchantment for 4 mana, enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. You're going to say, what is it, Cat Bard? No, not Bard. Cat Druid. There we go. Either cat or druid, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter probably unless you have other cats or druids in the deck that you really care about. Whenever a non-token creature of the chosen type enters the battlefield under control, create tokens, copy that creature. Token gains haste, exile begin next end step. This is just basically a way to double up that ETB from your commander. Again, if you've got ways to get that ETB again and again and again, and be able to say, oh cool, I get a second ETB from my commander. Again, a second meteorite, second source of damage, and permanent future ramp as well. Yeah, sign me up for that. Speaking of that, Panharmonicon. Yeah, if an artifact or creature in a battlefield causes a triggered ability, a permanent you control trigger, triggers initial time. This helps in 2 different ways. Number 1, again, doubles up your commander's ETB, which means that instead of getting 1 meteorite, you are getting 2. So again, that is 4 mana permanently, as long as your commander is in play, right? I mean, you get it on a future turn because they come into play tap, but still. That being said, also, those meteorites are artifacts, meaning that they have ETBs that deal 2 damage, and those double up too. So now instead of 2 damage per meteorite, it's basically 4. I mean, split out between 2. You can change the target, whatever you want to do. But yes, being able to, hey, ETB, double up twice again. So instead of it being 2 damage from 1 meteorite, it is 4 damage from 2, so that is 8 damage in total. Every single time your commander enters the battlefield, you are dishing out 8 damage on top of ramping 4. Yeah, Panharmonicon can be great with this commander. Also great, very obviously, basically in any treasure deck too, Parallel Lives. Anything that doubles up token production is incredible. Doubling Season, those kinds of cards. An effect would create 1 or more tokens on the battlefield under your control. Twice that many instead. This card is expensive for a reason. Has always been expensive for a reason, essentially. Any of these kind of cards are. Doubling up tokens is absurd, so doubling up your meteorites, again, making twice as many, twice as much damage as well. And then also treasures too, of course. Yeah, it's just very, very good. Conjurer's Closet. Like I said earlier, you are not in blue or white, which are the 2 colors when it comes to blink effects. They have basically all of them. So Conjurer's Closet is already one that can be very good for you, though, because it can fit in any deck. At the beginning of your end step, you may exile target creature control to turn the card to the battlefield under control. This is create a free meteorite every single one of your turns. That's going to be very well worth it. Well, with the 5 mana, you're going to be getting that mana back in absolutely no time with something like this. Goldspan Dragon, like I mentioned earlier, hey, if you've got a treasure deck, you want treasure support, let's make things even grosser. When it attacks or becomes the target of a spell, make a treasure token. Cool, more treasures. Also, on top of that, treasure you control have tap, sacrifice the artifact at 2 mana of any 1 color. Gross. I think I forgot to put that new goblin on the list too that gives you extra mana from sacrificing the artifacts as well. That one as well. Whatever that one's called, like the writer, he's like a crime novelist. Is it crime novelist? Is that the card's name? I think it's crime novelist. That one too. Anything that gives you extra mana from your treasures, probably going to be good in a treasure deck. Next up, Mirror March. $1.05. When I was like, oh, the budget ones, I'm going to put this in the butt. Oh, no, it's just been in the budget ones for like forever, and now it's not budget. Wizards reprint it. Mirror March. Enchantment for 6 mana. Whenever a non-token creature's battlefield under control, flip a coin to lose a flip. For each flip you won, create tokens, copy that creature. Those tokens gain haste. Exile begin next end step. Basically, every single time you win a flip, you get an extra meteorite, which is extra damage and extra mana. Well worth it. Again, and also any other creatures that you have coming into play, you can potentially win some flips and also get token copies of them. Very helpful with ETBs, obviously. Finally, City on Fire. Any kind of a damage doubling, or yes, damage tripling with this or Fire Emancipation is incredible. 8 mana for this, but you can convoke it out to cast it for a lot cheaper. If a source you control deal damage to a permanent player, deals triple that damage instead. Gross. Again, when your meteorite comes into play, normally it's 2 damage, right? If you're not Panharmoniconing. I mean, it's still 2 damage, but 2 damage. Now, instead of that, it's 6 damage for your commander entering the battlefield, giving you a meteorite, and it's 6 damage that can easily take out any creature or your opponent's faces. So, have fun with that. But now as this episode is coming to a close, it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know your thoughts on all these cards I talked about, all these spoilers that I talked about, all the crazy ones I talked about, Marchesa, Roxanne, that one Bovine Intervention card, High Noon, if you're not excited about playing against that one like I am. I mean, I'm not excited about it, is what I'm saying. Like, also not excited about playing against High Noon if it happens to be played against me. Yeah, rule of law. Who knew? Not fun for some play groups. Anyways, if you are interested in any of the cards I talked about for Roxan, make sure you check out some of those cards in the card list link in the description below. Consider picking up some of them. Stay tuned to this channel for more exciting quick takes and spoilers. Spoiler season is just starting. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.